Lieutenant Edward James has been given command of a new Tier 4 destroyer, the Clemson. After spending some of his savings to undergo training, he sets out for port, ready to test out his new ship. The lieutenant sees that most of his allies are heading west, and so he decides to head that way as well. The American destroyer line is quite adept at hunting enemy destroyers, and so that is the lieutenant's first priority. Seeing a destroyer, Lieutenant James adjusts his course to intercept the target. The enemy destroyer disappears, but the lieutenant knows he is still out there somewhere. Seeing a cloud of smoke off in the distance, the lieutenant begins to fire. Unafraid of the torpedoes, Lieutenant James continues to close in on the last known position of the enemy destroyer. The lieutenant continues to zero in on the enemy destroyer as he slowly closes the distance. As he fires on the destroyer, the lieutenant notices a severely crippled enemy cruiser that he decides to finish off instead.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
Turning to head back into the fight, Lieutenant Edward James fires a spread of torpedoes at an unsuspecting incoming destroyer. Firing shells into the enemy as he tries to escape, the American destroyer easily keeps pace with the enemy target, systematically wearing him down.
Enemy destroyer sunk.
With the immediate threat dealt with, the lieutenant turns and begins to fire on an enemy battleship. The Clemson is rocked by a salvo from the north, causing heavy damage and destroying a torpedo tube.
Problem solved, sir.
The Clemson disengages and tries to put some distance between her and her assaulters. Seeing a battleship heading around the islands, the lieutenant begins to head to intercept, planning his ambush as he goes. Approaching the edge of the island, the Clemson comes to a stop and waits. When the aiming reticle lines up, the lieutenant orders 2 salvos launched.
Smoke generator started.
When his escape path is obstructed by the island, smoke is released by the Clemson. The torpedoes are on target, and the enemy battleship had no idea what was even happening. The lieutenant notices that the base is being captured, and he turns to head back and prevent the cap.
Smoke screen set.
The enemy destroyer gives away his position by firing his artillery, and the lieutenant continues to close in. In this case, the smoke does very little. Since his position is already compromised, the smoke is actually limiting his options for evasion and effectively corralling him in. Clemson's artillery repeatedly hits the enemy destroyer, resetting the base capture point. Relentlessly pursuing the target, Lieutenant Edward James is awarded with another kill.
We've sunk an enemy destroyer. Smoke generator started.
Seeing the enemy ships incoming, the lieutenant orders smoke deployed. Turning towards the enemy cruiser to hopefully limit their time to react, the Clemson closes the distance, dropping torpedo spreads along the way.
Smoke screen set.
Enemy cruisers are designed to rip destroyers apart, however, and that's exactly what happens. And once again, the lieutenant is forced to watch his new ship sink. The lieutenant was pleased with the result of this game, earning 3rd place on his team for experience, while also destroying 4 enemy vessels before his was lost. Thanks for watching, and if you liked what you saw, please click subscribe below.